want to know a secret, promise not to tell. We are standing by, oh, wishing well. Make a wish into the well, that's all you have to do. And if you hear it echoing, your wish will soon come true. I'm wishing for the one I love to find me today.
They're auditioning for Snow White? That's special.
It was a unique experience. I mean, doing Snow White, something that had never been done before on the New York stage.
Aren't these flowers lovely?
I can't do it. Forgive me, Your Highness. I beg of you, forgive me.
I don't understand.
Well, she's mad, jealous. She'll stop at nothing. The Queen.
It was a fairy tale, played as a fairy tale with no cynicism, no tongue-in-cheek. So I guess, were asked to step in and participate in this magic.
What wouldst thou know, my queen?
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all?
Once there was a princess,
Was the princess you?
and she fell in love.
Was it hard to do?
Oh, it was very easy. Anyone could see that the prince was charming, the only one for me.
Oh, was he strong and handsome?
Was he big and tall?
There's nobody like him anywhere at all.
The thing that stands out most in my mind is Bob Yanni. It was he that had the vision of the show and who put us all together, and who had the compassion to make the show spectacular and as moving as it was. Great guy. I would have jumped off the marquee if Bob Yanni wanted me to.
He was just a one of a kind. His main thing in life was to create. And in being in the entertainment division for such a big company like Disney, we had to create something that had never been seen before, because you want something that brings the people into the park. It seemed like we always went over budget, but they knew the end result, they would get it back. He always said, always aim high, dare to dream. Don't ever set limits for yourself.
I used to go to Radio City. I started going as a kid. My parents used to take me. And then I went as a grown-up when I was living in New York. And I always was fascinated by the spectacle. And then I remember tickets got down to 89 cents at night, anything to get people in. And you'd walk into the 6,000-seat theater and there would be couple of hundred people and a symphony orchestra and the Rockettes and the movie and whatever. And it got to be sad, but they tried everything and nobody was going. I think, yes, audience change for changing big movie theaters. That's when people started twinning and multiplexing old theaters and building new theaters. And then there was talk that they were going to go out of business, and they let go. The ballet was gone first, and then the chorus, and so they started doing those things, and then they were going to close. And I had friends that actually bought tickets to the final performance at Radio City.
They actually contacted him while he was still at Disney, the Rockefellers at that time, about, quote, saving Radio City Music Hall. Bob just thought it was like such an historical landmark that it had to be saved.
Bob was not of the theater. He was not a Broadway theater guy. He was a spectacular, spectacle producer, creator, inventive thinker. And they brought him in because that's what they needed. They needed somebody to rethink Radio City.
The people in New York, they wanted to see the hall restored, so they were helping. The theatrical unions helped. Everybody was like, yeah, they all got behind it. We want to save Radio City, you know.
Hi-ho, it's home from work we go.
35 days. We did it in 35 days. We not only restored the hall, but we also came up with 3 new shows for that season. We opened with the New York Summer. The second month we had Snow White, and then we had the Christmas show, which is still running now 30 years later.
Mr. Radio City Music Hall, I mean, really re-inspired, brought new life to that theater. When it was really on hard times, turned it around totally, brought all that magic back. It was wonderful. It was an experience to go to Radio City, and he made that happen.
Hi-ho, hi-ho.
I wasn't taken to the cinema till I was almost 16. And my father took me to see, the first movie I saw was Snow White.
We knew that they wanted to make a statement through this production, that something could be done magnificently and faithfully according to the film.
Since the story was already written, that was, half the battle right there. And all the people at Disney helped us 100%.
Well, I think he honored what was there because it is a good story. It's a classic tale. You don't dumb it down. You don't make it sweet when it is. There's a lesson to be learned in this story.
Say her name. This is Snow White, isn't it?
Greed and envy hand in hand bring but misery to a land.
Do not sermonize your queen.
Everything was always approached very positively, like, how can we make this the best show ever?
We are standing by a whistling well.
Well, little Charlie, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I looked up at this lady and I said, I want to be an actor in New York City. And she laughed at me, pointed, and said, what's a little boy from Frankfort, Kentucky want to be an actor for? I went to an interview and Frank Wagner asked me what role I wanted to play. And he said, well, why don't you come back and read for the witch? I said, no, I want you to be as close to the witch in the movie. So I kind of got behind the table and I, hey, look, my hands. And he said, wait 1 second. And he went and he got Bob Yanni, and then Mr. Yanni came in, and they stood there in front of me. He said, now do it again. The next thing I know, I had a hump on my back, and I was hackling and cackling.
I happened to pick up one of the audition newspapers. It said they wanted short people to be in Snow White. Well, I knew the story of Snow White, and I sure knew that I was a short person, so I said, and I sure knew this would be an interesting work to do. So I said, well, I'll go to the audition.
We started the national talent search for Snow White, and we started at the Walt Disney Studios. So we get there, and there was just a line out the lot. I couldn't believe how many girls were, auditioning for it. And that was just the first city, Los Angeles. And we also had auditions in New York and Chicago.
I'd worked at this cocktail restaurant type place called the Gaslight Club because they were singing cocktail waitresses. The woman behind the bar one night was reading the Chicago Tribune. It must have been a slow night. And she said, Mary Jo, Radio City's looking nationwide for a girl to play Snow White. You should go do this. They lined us up. And if you've seen Chorus Line, what they do is they call the names and the people step forward and they think, oh good, I'm cast. But what they do is they dismiss them. So they called these girls forward and said, you're dismissed. And I sat there thinking, oh, I'm going to New York. Further on down in the process, I do remember reading with Charles Edward Hall.
I remember just waiting for her to take that apple and drop.
And I lay there for a minute, and then I opened my eyes, and I looked up, and Charles was looking at me, and it was kind of with horror, like, is she all right? And Bob Yanni said, we'd like you. We'd like you to play Snow White. And I said, you would?
The Princess Snow White!
And from that moment, we knew something special was happening. It was a special theater, it was a special project, so it was like magic, and you just felt it from the very beginning. Everybody was very excited.
I'm wishing,
For the most of us, it was either a departure from what we had done on Broadway, or it was a first job. And so most of us had never done anything this grand or this elaborate before.
I remember, walking down on stage one time, taking the elevator from the rehearsal halls down to the stage, and I was waiting forever for the elevator to come. And finally the elevator door opened, and there was a big white horse in the elevator.
It was Prince Charming's horse. We had principals who were well-known actors. We had a huge chorus. And they were putting a show together, a new musical, not something that had been done 1,000 times before, a new musical in a very short amount of time. Frank Wagner was directing and choreographing, and it was a large space.
Huntsman, you may enter.
My queen.
Why do you suppose I brought you to this land?
To serve you in any way I can, Majesty.
And serve me you will.
There weren't many big egos involved in it, except for Anne Francine, who was quite a formidable presence. And I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. She had quite a reputation, and consequently she was someone who demanded respect, and you gave it to her.
You will kill her!
Your Majesty!
Silence!
The princess!
Silence!
We had to work creatively within our realm of the character that people knew, and that what had already been created on film in animation. And I think that's what was so enchanting and magical about Mary Jo being Snow White. She looked like Snow White.
just like a doll's house. I like it here. Oh, this window's so dirty.
So much of the role was physical as opposed to internal. And I did just kind of raise my voice a little bit because she was young.
Oh, please don't run away. I won't hurt you.
I think I must have said, oh, 12 times. Like, oh, there are the animals. Oh, there's a little house. Oh, I think they used to make fun of me a little bit because there were so many O's.
Doc, Happy, Sneezy, and Dopey. What funny names for children.
We forgot that they were men. They were grown men because they looked like little kids. And you'd kind of think, oh, how cute. And then they would say things to you and you'd go, these are guys, yes,
Oh, you're Sneezy. And you must be
Happy, ma'am. That's me. And this is Dopey. He don't talk none.
Oh, you mean he can't talk?
He don't know. He never tried.
The production called for masks. Masks to be put on.
That's a bad sign. What do we do?
Happy, right? His mask has that happy face on it all the time.
Was it drooling? What was it doing?
Fortunately, my background is circus clowning, which is nonverbal and from a distance. So you had to kind of express yourself with your body.
Rehearsals were a scream on that stage because you don't realize, but every time you cross the stage, you've walked one entire block. You're rehearsing it, may do 8 or 9 times in a row. You have walked something like 9 blocks.
One follow sped operator would run 2 lamps. So
He stood between 2 follow spots.
And with each hand was running spots.
Just whistle while you work, and cheerfully together we can tidy up the place. So hum a merry tune.
I mean, I crawled on my hands and knees as the turtle across that stage 8 shows a week. The mask was a whole thing that came over here, and the eyes were out here. I would have to peek around inside to see where I was going half the time. And I would just see people running by me, and I would just keep my eyes on that ground, on that stage, where those cracks were that I knew would lead me off into the wings without getting killed.
There must have been some kind of undercurrent knowing that this was such an unusual experience and really magical. I did lose my voice, though. So at rehearsals, I would move around and practice where I was supposed to be in relation to the animals or the little men. And I think my understudy sang the songs.
It was a hurdle just to get through rehearsals sometimes, particularly in tech rehearsals. I'd never been in a Broadway show before. I'd never been in a show with that many people.
People having to double and triple, like the dancers had to work puppets, sing.
As you know, the dwarfs all had masks. Lou Carey, who played Sneezy, he absentmindedly does not pick up the Sneezy mask. He picks up the mask of a raccoon. So all of us are laughing on stage. And Lou is like, what? What's the problem?
And a couple of times the horse would upstage us. That was an interesting situation where the horse would decide to relieve itself, himself or herself. I don't know exactly. I can't remember the gender of the horse, but in any case, it happened a couple of times right before our scene.
Huge show. Set changes were very difficult. These enormous fold-in sets. You couldn't be off your mark. If you were off your mark, you could have go crashing to the basement if you were on the elevator.
Anne Francine came running out, and on the orchestra pit elevator, the magic table was being set 28 feet down. And when she called for it, it just appeared up out of the floor. If this is the edge of the stage, that's 28 feet down. Her feet were like that.
She had no idea that she was teetering
she
on the brink.
She was 3 inches away from falling and killing herself.
But when it comes to fruition, that's the prize, that's the joy of it. You forget all the other stuff. And it's just the joy of it. And that you were a part of this historic event.
We would bump the lights up, when we bumped the lights up on the dwarfs on the
side choral stairs.
On the choral stairs, and you hear hum, bum, 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 and they would sing hi ho, and we'd bump the lights on them. Pandemonium.
Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, you make the troubles go.
Spontaneously, everybody in the audience started singing at the same time with us. I don't know which came first, Snow White or Rocky Horror Picture Show, but I think we got the audience participation thing a long time ago.
She must work until her back is bent, until her hands are rough, her face lined with toil. And if she resists, beat her.
It's the first time I have ever been booed or hissed at or had, what are those things, paper clips thrown at me. Everything because they hated Luna. It was a little bit hard for the ego, I must say.
I must see her again.
One love that has possessed me. One love thrilling me through.
The kids that would wait outside at the stage door afterwards, he would go out in, not in his prince costume, but still princely and sign. He played it to the hilt and enjoyed it, and he was very generous that way. It was a perfect choice to play the prince. He was very princely.
I shall go myself to the dwarf's cottage in a disguise so complete no one will ever suspect.
Charles was like this quiet, very gentle actor. I mean, he had this lovely voice, and he was so calm and all that. He would put on that outfit and become something that was like terrifying.
There I'd be in the little dwarf's cottage, sweeping around or whatever it was that I was doing, and the witch appeared. I would know it without even visualizing, because the kids would say, "Oh, no, go away!" It became an interactive show right there, because they knew it was coming.
Now take the apple, dearie, and make a wish.
I wish.
Yes.
To stand on the stage at Radio City Music Hall and having thousands of people screaming, "Don't eat it," or don't. It's a wonder that I didn't levitate.
I'm trapped, you meddling little fools! I'll break your little bones!
Everyone loved those.
They loved it,
dwarfs.
so it was good. And the show was such a hit. I think it was booked, it was 4 weeks only. So it was booked for 4 weeks, and it was a sellout hit. And they did 8 shows a week.
It was heartwarming to know that we had touched people, really touched them deeply. I had no idea how much it would work. It is truly magic. That's when theater is magic.
We also took it to Washington. We went to the National Theater there, and Jimmy Carter was president at the time. And the talking roles were invited to the White House.
So many people work their way up and get that. That was my first, my dream got to come true my very first time at bat. And that was a wondrous thing, really.
Goodbye, Dopey.
Goodbye, Philly! Don't be
For more than 20 years, I've been portraying Santa Claus at Radio City. In the Christmas Spectacular, the security comes and knocks on my dressing room door and says, "Charles, there's a lady down here and she won't leave. She refuses to leave until she sees you." She said, "You don't know me, but when you were a little kid, I asked you at your aunt's house what you wanted to be when you grow up. And you told me that you wanted to be an actor, and I laughed at you and I made fun of you." And she said, "Charles, I wept every time you walked on stage."
It gave me the most incredible, long-lasting, lifelong memory of a time in my life, in a place, and a group of people.